It's been 11 years since the introduction of the very first iPhone. This is the iPhone 1, or the first generation iPhone, if you want to correct me there. And you can slide to unlock, and you can see it still boots up and it still works to this day. Now, granted, there has been a massive evolution to the iPhone series, the most popular consumer product in the history of mankind. You see, they went to the iPhone 3 series and it had a plastic back, which had infamously cracked here on the 3G. Then we went to the 4 series, which had the glass back in the front. This thing was beautiful. Just a really nice phone here and very popular. And if you did crack the back on the 4 or 4S, it was super easy to fix that phone. Then the 5 series, which had a lot of paint chipping issues. As you can see, this one right here had it, but still a very popular 4-inch device. And then finally, the iPhone 5S, first phone to bring Touch ID to the market here, and one of the first smartphones that really popularized the fingerprint scanner on a smartphone. It might not have been the first, but it did really make it popular. Then over here, we did have the iPhone 6 that came after that. Then we had the iPhone 6S, and then we had the iPhone 6S Plus that came with that 6S. We had the iPhone SE, we had the iPhone 7 after that, and all the way up to the 8, and today, the iPhone 10. Look at the evolution here from the 1 to the 10. I mean, it's ridiculous how far the thinness has come down over the years. And but it's one thing that has really stayed true has been like the build quality. Like, Apple has always done good build quality in their phones. Let me go ahead and file these ones off to the side here so we can focus in on the iPhone first gen here. And you can look at the back, just super solid here on the rear. I think this is stainless steel, but this thing is just really rock solid here. And then if you look on the left side, you can see that classic silent switch did remain ever since the very first iPhone, making it super simple to turn up your volume and turn it down. Over here on the left, you do have yourself the volume rockers, nice ridges, so you can really easily feel that. Up at the top, you can see that you did have your earpiece. Very simple, clean design here. This is running iOS 3, and a lot of people probably miss this old iOS. I know I do, but the new one is really nice as well. It's just a little bit buggy. Over here, you do have the power button. Over here, we have that 3.5mm headset jack and that monstrous SIM that was, got really small and went to a nano SIM all the way to this day. On the back, you have a single 2-megapixel camera, and this camera doesn't have a video recorder. You couldn't even do video on the first iPhone. Apple logo right there on the back. At the bottom, you could see a little rubber grip here and the iPhone. Now, there's even skins to skin your phone out if you want to check those out. I mean, you can get one of these that looks just like the very first iPhone. And really where I think Apple has improved quite a bit is the thin factor. They've really thinned out their phones, and they made them a lot faster, of course. That's just something that comes with the territory of technology. It gets faster over the years. This thing had a whopping 320 by 480 display resolution at 165 pixels per inch. So yes, there's a little bit of pixelation you could see on here. The Retina display came along with the iPhone 4 series. This did have Corning Gorilla Glass with oleophobic coating though, even all the way back to the first iPhone. This had a 412 megahertz CPU, and this thing was only upgradable to iOS 3.1.3, which I do actually have installed here on the first gen iPhone. And surprisingly, to this day, this iPhone is actually still usable as a phone. Of course, you're not going to be able to use the internet that well on here unless you want to wait for the rest of your life, but still, it's going to get the job done. I mean, I was even on the Apple website earlier, and look at this. You could still actually browse a website. Yeah, you get some checker pattern. You don't see that anymore. But I mean, in a pinch, this phone still works 11 years later. The phone weighed 135 grams, which is pretty heavy considering how small it is, because phones like the SE are even lighter than this, even though they have bigger screens. So it's a chunky little, weighty little phone. It feels premium even now. Could get this in all the way up to 16 gigabytes as the max storage. This did have 802.11bg Wi-Fi. So at the time, it had the best Wi-Fi you can get, and it had Bluetooth 2.0, but this did have support for Google Maps as well, way back on the very first iPhone. So this thing was like revolutionary for the time. Taking a look at the camera quality is actually rather terrible, and most phones these days can really just crush anything from way back, of course. And when you got a budget phone and you're saying the camera quality is not that great, just take a look at the quality you get from the first gen iPhone, and I think that will change your mind up quite a bit. I mean, this phone, I mean, we've come a long way, and even budget phones have incredible cameras compared to what we were using back in the day. The App Store is super outdated here, and it hasn't been updated. This phone just doesn't have the power, but for what it does run, it surprisingly still works here, even in 2018. Let's take a look at the size comparison again with some of the other iPhones. We've seen the iPhone 10. You can see the thickness levels just massively different right here on the iPhone 10. Let's take a look at it versus like a Plus model iPhone 6s Plus, for example, and boom, just massively thinner there on the iPhone 6s Plus. So if you have any of these older iPhones and you're not happy about it, like, just take a look at this phone and then you might appreciate your phone a little bit more. Here is an iPhone SE, super thin compared to the older first gen iPhone. And going over here to the iPhone 6s or the 6 series, one of the most popular, actually the most sold iPhone all time, super thin, super light, and just a much more sleek design over the iPhone first gen. Overall, the battery life is just absolutely horrible on this phone. There's no iMessaging. There's no apps that are really supported anymore. You have the old TV, YouTube icon, which doesn't even work here on this iPhone. So literally the first gen iPhone, see, you cannot connect to YouTube. Literally the first gen iPhone, all it's really useful for is like the basic applications. But I thought it'd be fun to take a look at this old iPhone. So I got a question for you. Would you like to see Apple bring like a retro style design iPhone back, kind of like this, but much thinner and kind of has the looks of this? Or you think that you're happy with where Apple's going and this design was nice for the time, but goodbye, it's old, it's dated? No. Or do you like this classic iPhone look? Do you miss the days of iOS 1, iOS 3, iOS 6? Let's chat about that down below in the comments section of this video. This was my revisited look at the 2007 iPhone in 2018. No, it's not really usable unless you're going to use it just to make a phone call.